during the Alton Sterling incident. Our review was focused specifically on the conduct of our officers and its application to our policy and procedures. I want to make sure that I am clear on how we arrived here today. First, the United States Attorney's Office was investigating to determine if officers Blaine Salamone and Howie Lake violated Alton Sterling's civil rights. After an exhaustive year-long federal criminal civil rights investigation, the federal government concluded that there was insufficient evidence to charge our police officers with a federal crime. Second, the Attorney General's office in Louisiana was to determine if our police officers were in violation of state criminal laws. After an extensive investigation, it was determined that there was no sufficient evidence to bring forth criminal charges by the Attorney General. Once those two investigations concluded, it was my responsibility to the citizens of Baton Rouge and also to the men and women who wear this uniform to conclude an administrative investigation and to bring closure to a cloud that has been over our community for far too long. I will not provide step-by-step specifics as it relates to what you're going to see in the video. I'm not going to do that. The Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney gave a very specific, detailed account of what's on that video. We will provide a copy for everybody here of all the video evidence that we have in our possession related to this incident. We will also provide a copy of the report and all documents required by Louisiana Public Records law. And you will have an opportunity to view it for yourself and assess the conduct of our police officers and Mr. Sterling. As Chief of Police of the Baton Rouge Police Department, I am tasked with ensuring the quality and professionalism of the officers that serve our community. My finding is based on the actions of the officers in responding to the incident, as well as their adherence to the policies and training provided by the Baton Rouge Police Department. These actions were not minor deviations from policy, as they contributed to the outcome that resulted in the death of another human being. Last night, in the very room that you are in right now, we held a disciplinary hearing for Officer Howie Lake and Officer Blaine Salamone. This hearing was convened separately for each officer. Each officer was represented by an attorney and by a union representative. We discussed the evidence that was presented as part of the administrative review process, and each officer had an opportunity to present arguments, to present witnesses, and to provide an explanation for his behavior and actions during the incident. Officer Howie Lake answered all of the questions that was presented during the hearing. On the advice of his attorney, Officer Salamone chose not to answer any of our questions. We take great consideration of the demands that we place on our law enforcement officers. Every officer knows in their heart that they may be called to a higher duty. Just a few blocks from here, we lost 3 of our officers. They were murdered in walking distance from where we now stand. And this year in America, we've mourned the loss of 20 law enforcement officers across this country due to firearm-related death. So I take officer safety to heart. But our actions as law enforcement officers needs to reflect both the legal and community standards, as well as the practices and policies of our police department. Daily, our officers respond to incidents that require the ability to effectively and safely resolve critical incidents. And we have officers that demonstrate this behavior every single day without compromising officer safety. Our officers are a great authority, and they deserve our support. In exchange, they need to be professionally responding to incidents in line with our policies, in line with our training and legal standards that govern officer actions. Our police officers are held to a higher standard. Fear cannot be a driver for an officer's response to every incident. Unreasonable fear within an officer is dangerous. Rather, an officer needs to respond with awareness of a situation and the ability to effectively and rationally evaluate a situation and its appropriate response. Our officers should be guardians for the community, providing assurance that will act legally and professionally, and when appropriate, transition to that warrior mentality when he feels that his life or someone else's life is in imminent danger. Policing isn't easy. To our community, all the residents of Baton Rouge who are watching, please listen to my words very carefully. Treat our police officers with the respect that their positions deserve. Treat our police officers with the respect that their positions deserve. And I assure you that the men and women of the Baton Rouge Police Department will reciprocate that gesture. Please stop resisting. Stop running. When the police officer gives you direction, listen. Follow his directives. Listen to his instructions. Being a lawyer on the side of the roadway doesn't work out. Please. It's important. In that encounter, when you follow our officer's directives, if our officer is unprofessional, if you believe that that stop was unconstitutional, or if he was unprofessional in any kind of way, if you believe it was racial profiling or whatever your issue is, then I encourage you to get with your family, your mama, your community ambassador, whoever your support system is, your pastor, and file a complaint. We want to hear about it. We want to know about it. Because this is what happens when you do that. When you take the time to pick up the phone and file a complaint, this is what happens. We get to learn if our police officers are responding to the training and the policies and procedures that we have in place. But we don't know that unless you pick up the phone and you tell us. It's important. That's how we identify. And in most cases, when that happens, most complaints will be resolved by the police department communicating or articulating to you that we had a legal right to do what we did. We can clear a lot of complaints up that way. Or they will be cleared through coaching, mentoring, training, counseling, and when appropriate, discipline. But we need to hear from you. We will be releasing video evidence and reports at the conclusion of this press conference. And we do this to demonstrate our commitment of transparency within the community. The videos that you're going to see, they're not going to tell the whole story of the investigation. They're just part of the evidence that was presented before us. The videos that you will see and hear are graphic, and they're shocking to the conscious. And experts all across the nation, they're going to dissect the video. They're going to dissect our reports. They're going to Monday morning quarterback everything our officers did, everything in investigative process. And we understand that. But we will not focus on the rearview mirror. This incident happened 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. Instead, we're going to focus on what's ahead of us. And that's our pursuit as a police department to strive for excellence in law enforcement. That's what we're going to focus on. We will be professional in everything we do. We will be professional in our appearance. We will be professional in our demeanor, how we interact with people. We will be professional in the processes, and we will be professional in the product that we put out. We have great men and women in this department who wear this uniform, who understand leadership, who understand the values of loyalty, duty, respect, honor, integrity, and personal courage. But their actions, they don't trend on social media. Their performance don't make the headlines of the newspaper. Their conduct doesn't present gatherings like this conference is. Not the good deeds we do. We don't get this much attention for the good deeds. But we have police officers out there every day that are putting their lives on the line. And we ask a lot of our police officers. We do. And sometimes it appears that those expectations are not reasonable. We want our police officers to be medics. With the opioid epidemic, we want them to be crime fighters, social workers, crime preventers, marriage counselors. And I can go on and on and on about all the things that we expect our police officers to be. And each one of those that I've mentioned, each one of those responsibilities require a different hat, a different skill set, each one of them, to accomplish that task. And what we do as a community, we don't even want to pay our police officers. But yet we want them to wear all of these different hats. Pay our police officers. They deserve it. They deserve it. Because the officers I'm going to talk about, one mistake was a lot more egregious than the other. You hear about that, but you don't hear about the good work that the men and women of this police department are doing every day. And we're going to work with the mayor. We're going to work with the city council. We're going to work with our local legislators. We're going to work with the union, and we're going to work with the community. And we're going to put together a plan to make us one of the highest paid police departments in this state. and we're going to do our part to show you that we are the professional agency that we can be. To the Baton Rouge police officers who are watching right now, I will be meeting with each and every one of you to explain how I got to the decision today. It's important that we have this one-on-one dialogue. It's important because some people are going to tell you that I don't have your back. Some people are going to tell you that because I believe in reform, which only means change, that I don't support law enforcement. Some are going to tell you that the mayor hired me on conditions. Some are going to tell you that I didn't give enough time to the attorneys who are representing these police officers to build their case. All lies. Simply not the truth. Simply not the truth. I have your back. I support you. I appreciate what you do every day. We all do. It's important for you to know that. We pray for you each and every single day, my staff and I. Now, just to be clear, my decision was not based on politics. It was not based on emotions. It was based on the facts of the case. The testimony provided by our officers and witnesses, and a recommendation from our board members during the disciplinary hearing. But I take full responsibility for the decision that I made. And it's a responsibility that I take very seriously. And I understand that this decision will not only affect the officers, but it will also affect their families and the community as well. We have 2 officers involved in one incident. The same incident with 2 different responses. 2 different perspectives. And they perceived the threat different. One officer attempted to use de-escalation and disengagement techniques consistent with policy and procedure and training. And one officer did not follow the tactics, training, professionalism, and organizational standards. Simple. As a result of the administrative investigation into the conduct and behavior of Officer Howie Lake, as it relates to the Baton Rouge Police Department training policy and procedure related to use of force, it is not sustained. As it relates to command of temper, a disposition of sustained was determined, and Officer Howie Lake will be suspended for 3 days. That is my decision. That is the right decision. As a result of the administrative investigation into the conduct and behavior of Officer Blaine Salamone as it relates to the Baton Rouge Police Department training policy and procedures, a violation of use of force has been sustained, and a violation of command of temper has been sustained. Officer Blaine Salamone has been terminated from the Baton Rouge Police Department effective today. We ask that you keep both officers and their families in your prayers, and keep the men and women of the Baton Rouge Police Department in your prayers as well. That concludes my statement.
Chief Paul.
Yes, sir.
Will Mr. Lake be returning to what he was doing before, patrolling the streets, responding to calls?
We haven't had that discussion yet. I just made this. We just had that. We just concluded our hearing last night. We just notified the officers today. Prior to coming and having this press conference, I made my final decision. And so we haven't had that discussion yet, sir.
Are you you confident that this will, your decision to fire Officer Salamone and suspend Officer Lake will stand up on appeal to the civil board?
Well, it's the right thing to do. You know, it might not be the popular decision, but it was the right decision, make no doubt about that. And we're confident in our administrative process and what the work that we put together. So, yes, sir.
Chief, can you tell us what exactly constituted excessive force by Salamone that warranted his?
The training. He failed to the training.
What during the incident actually constituted excessive force? Can you pinpoint an action?
Well, I'm not going to get into specifics. Let me tell you why. His attorney has already communicated their intent to appeal. Both attorneys submitted correspondence prior to the hearing. So I'm not going to get into specifics and say anything that could be used in that process.
Chief, you mentioned that this video was shocking to you and very graphic. Do you feel like it will change people's minds based on their preconceived notions once they see it?
Well, you know, I don't know what everybody's going to think. Look, here's what we know. We perceive things differently. I mean, you just see the outcry right now. You know, I think the public doesn't really understand the difference from a criminal investigation and an administrative investigation. But yeah, it's going to be shocking to the conscience. I think anybody who sees this video and don't think it's shocking, or if it doesn't have some type of emotion, or trigger some type of emotion.
Also, did the officers take any post-incident drug tests? And if so, is that going to be available in what you released?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Chief, there are going to be those that see this video and say it's further proof that Alton Sterling never stood a chance. What do you say to those who may react negatively to the video and who may be planning demonstrations or worse tonight?
Look, we respect everybody's right to protest. The fact is, I wouldn't be standing here before you if that wasn't a right. Okay? We just ask that you do it peacefully, and we're going to do everything within our power to make sure it's safe. Because look, we do understand that this is a healing process. All right? This is over. There's no more criminal investigation. This is the last investigation. So we're going to allow the community to heal, and we're going to allow our police officers to heal. Like, every police officer is not going to agree with the decision that I make, but I am still going to be their chief of police, and I'm going to do everything in my power to explain to them, because they too have to heal. He had friends on this department. He had relatives on this department.
Do you think that your decision will satisfy those who still don't feel that they have justice? Is this enough?
Well, I hope that it brings closure. That's what I hope. I hope that we can begin the healing. We can have conversations. We are moving forward as a police department to make sure that our police officers are getting the proper training, and that incidents such as this won't happen again. And we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we give our police officers the tools that they need, and that's training.
Chief, you said command of temper is one of the things that you sustained for both officers. Can you explain what that means in layman's terms? And
When you see the video, you'll get it. You'll understand it when you see it. I'm sorry?
The appeal process and how long before the appeal hearing?
The appeal process, I'm going to direct one of our internal affairs investigators to talk about that.
Yes, sir. To answer your question, the appeals process requires that the attorneys representing the officers submit a request to the Civil Service Board to schedule a date for hearing the case. Because it is a termination case, it takes precedent within our civil service organization, and basically at this point in time, the schedule will be set by our Civil Service Board and not the police department.
How does Howie Lee come back and be a police officer in this town after all that's happened here over the last 2 years? Can you explain how that's even a possibility?
I think it is. I think that once the sees the video and digests it and reads the report, and with the communication that we're going to have with the community subsequent to this, I believe that the community will give them a chance, and I hope that they do, and I'm asking and praying that you do. Okay?
You talked
Because
about officers who might think that Mr. Salamone should not have been fired and think that what he did was all right. That might concern some people in the community if there are other officers who think those actions are all right. How do you respond to that? How do you change that culture?
Well, look, I can't change what's in their hearts. I mean, I can't do that. I can focus on their behavior. I can focus on the policies and procedures of the police department and make sure that our police officers are demonstrating the behavior consistent with those policies. And when they're not, there are going to be consequences to that. And that's where accountability comes in at. But I don't see that being the issue. Look, we got men and women on this police department that are going to go out there and do the right thing. That doesn't mean that a police officer, because he disagrees with my decision, that he's not going to go out there and do his job.
Chief, a clarifying question, that suspension for Officer Lake, is that paid or unpaid?
That's the 3 day unpaid. That's unpaid. Administrative leave is different. Any suspension is unpaid.
Chief, you're a career police officer. Based on your findings and your actions today, do you think the Department of Justice and the Attorney General erred in not charging these officers?
I'm not going to comment on their investigation. My investigation was strictly administrative in nature, related to policies and procedures.
Chief, can you say if you believe that laws should be changed to hold officers more accountable, possibly, in these sort of situations?
Are you speaking of criminal laws?
Possibly, yes.
I haven't researched that matter, sir.
Will you all be changing anything in your policy to directly reflect, possibly changing something that could bring about charges in a case like this?
Well, we're just making sure that we're looking at not only the type of training that we're doing, but also who's doing the training. Okay, that's very important, how that training is being presented. So that was something that I communicated when I went through this process to get this job, that we were going to be looking at training among other areas in the department. So that is part of our review. And look, that's something we should constantly do. You know, the public's expectation on how we do our job changes. We see that with body cameras and, changes in how we do pursuit. So we should always be reevaluating and looking at our policies on a constant basis to make sure that we are making the necessary changes with times.
In your review, looking at Mr. Salamoni's body camera, possibly, did you look at any other previous incidents and see if he had broken policies and procedures before and done this before and kind of in a graphic manner, you say?
I can't comment on the ongoing investigation.
Was Officer Salamoni's refusal to answer your questions at all a factor in your decision to fire him?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Was Officer Salamoni's refusal to answer your questions during the hearing a factor in your decision to
I
fire him?
cannot answer that question.
We're almost 2 years out from the initial shooting in July. Did this process move fast enough for you, or we're almost 2 years out from when this originally happened? Did this process move fast enough?
Absolutely not. It shouldn't take 2 years for us to be here, almost 2 years for us to be here today. No, that's far too long. This cloud has been over this community for too long. This should have been resolved a long time ago.
Chief, while we're on the subject of schedules and whatnot, there were some criticisms that your decision today came too quickly after the Attorney General's decision earlier this week. This was, sort of a rushed situation, to say the critics. Your thoughts in terms of, why to provide this in the time frame that you did?
7 with how many days?
3,
4 days. Look, this investigation was concluded in 2016. We have something called a Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. The Law Enforcement Bill of Rights states that an investigation shall be completed within 60 days. So this investigation has been completed, and the attorneys had a copy of the report in their possession since 2016. So I don't know how long an attorney needs to prepare for it, but I think that's reasonable time. It didn't take us that long to read it.
Officer Salamoni has been on paid administrative leave for this period of time, nearly 2 years. Is there any clawback to the money he's been paid with this firing?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Is there any way to recoup any of the money he's been paid on paid administrative leave?
No, ma'am.
And what does it mean for his pension, et cetera?
I'm not sure how his pension works, but no, he will not. I mean, he was on administrative leave per policy. Effective today was his last day as a Baton Rouge police officer. So he will not be compensated anymore, and we will not be asking, nor will we be seeking for any type of reimbursement.
2 more questions.
Did you all wait for the DOJ and the AG before you started an administrative investigation? I guess in a nutshell, could this have been done in the summer of 2016 and let those investigations play out? And if you did wait for that, why did you
The
wait for
administrative investigation was completed within 60 days as per the Louisiana Law Enforcement Bill of Rights.
that? But then why not announce it 60 days after it was done?
I'm sorry?
Did you not announce it 60 days after it was done?
I wasn't the chief of police then. I just took over in January.
Should they have announced it 60 days after it was done?
You would have to ask the previous
What do you think, though?
administration. I don't have a comment on it.
Last
Any
question.
message for the Sterling family? They're gonna be seeing this, their loved one die on camera. I mean, is there anything you'd like to say to them as they watch this video?
They're in our prayers, just like our officers are in our prayers. We'll reach out to them, and I hope this brings some closure to them.
Thank you.